Hi, I'm Laura Ellis, and welcome to today's episode of Happily Ever After. So, you hear the old saying, something new, something borrowed, something old, something blue, or something like that. Well, that definitely happened to me and my hubby when we had to totally reschedule or redo our entire wedding due to COVID 19. So once we had to face that reality, we regrouped. And one day I was at home and I was in our basement, meaning the home I own with my parents. And I saw this lovely box. Can you see it? And I'm like, what in the world is that? And I opened it, and lo and behold, it was the knife for the cake. That was for my brother's wedding a number of years before. The wedding that didn't happen. You see, my brother was engaged one, two, three times. That's right. One, two, three times. And he got married the third time. He didn't get married the first two times. So it is true that the third time is the charm. So this was actually made for his second wedding, and my father and mother bought this for him and his fiance, and their names were on it. You can't see it here, and they never got married. So my father didn't know what to do with this stuff. He did take it back to the retailer, but they weren't very helpful. And the second part of this, if you've got it, is for the cake, to pick up the cake slices, and you see it's beautifully engraved. So the second thing that I found in the basement that day was another beautiful box. And as you can see, stuff was in that as well. And what was in there were the two beautiful glasses, champagne glasses. There we go. Let me get out the way so you can see it. And this has a heart, and you can see it's engraved. You may not be able to see it as well. And you will see that the wine glass for the toast for the gentleman has a little bow tie. Absolutely beautiful, and has three buttons. The ladies has three buttons as well. So that was the something old, and it was supposed to be for my brother's wedding when he got engaged the second time, but it didn't work out. So my dad took these items back to the retailer to see if he could get something done, and they were like, nope, can't do anything, your problem. So a few years later, I think that was like in 2008, a few years later, I was in that same store, and I'm going to do a shout out to Minister Hope Coleman. I think it's when she became an ordained minister. I worked with her with the evangelism ministry at New Summers Church, Baptist Church, a number of years, and I wanted to get Hope something special. So I went into this establishment, and the display for bracelets, I looked all around, and I wanted to get a bracelet, and it was like a mess. And I'm particular about certain things, especially when it comes to my money. So I took down every single bracelet, looked over every single one, and chose the one I liked best that I thought Hope would like. Then, because it was already a mess and I couldn't make heads or tails of it, I put all the bracelets back in order, and it looked beautiful. I am a librarian, people. I live by Dewey, okay? So what happened was, after I finally chose the bracelet for Hope, after I finally figured out what I wanted engraved on it without breaking the bank, because you know I don't shop retail, I went to buy it, and I noticed the lady looking at me didn't know she was the manager, and she said, "Would you like a job?" And I'm like, "What?" So I got a job at that particular establishment. So this was like, I don't know, it was the year before I went to Italy, and I went to Italy in 2014, I think. So I had one, two, three jobs. I was working my full-time teaching job, working after school with the kids for Montgomery County wrecked. And then I was working at this establishment on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was a working person, workaholic. When people can't say they can't find a job, I do believe during COVID things were crazy, but that's nothing. I've always been able to find a job. I've been very blessed that way. So unfortunately, because I was on my feet like all the time, my arches fell, but that's a different video for a different day. So I'm there, and I want to say I absolutely love that job because it was my job to work on the floor, and I got to interact with people, which I like. And what I like so much, this was a store when people came and got things and they were sentimental things. So everything either had to be engraved or embroidered. And people often didn't know what to say. And it wasn't cheap to get your things engraved. So people were really stuck. And so a lot of times when people didn't know what to say, I would help them and talk them through that process. And by doing that, I got to hear their stories. And people's stories are amazing. Everyday people have wonderful stories. Now, most of the stories were happy stories, graduations, marriages, promotions, new jobs, but some of the stories were sad. Like when someone died, there was a woman who came in, they were having the funeral for her father that later that afternoon, and she wanted that like frame to put a flag in. He was a veteran, and she was just very distraught. Another one is a man came in with his little girl, and their mother, his wife had died. Another was a couple who came in and their baby died, and they had, a curl of the baby's hair. So it's happy stories and sad stories, birthdays and deaths, memorials and marriages, all kinds of events that happen in our life that are, milestones or benchmarks, and people want to do something to capture that and to remember that. Like yesterday, I talked about communion and how David and I did communion and how Jesus asks that they do the communion in remembrance of him after they did the Last Supper. So this is another way that people, kind of memorialize those special moments in their lives. And, because they're never going to come again. And it's just a way to capture it. So that is a really funny story. And it's really interesting that my mother and my father got these items from my brother. But when it was my turn to get married, and I was only engaged once, I didn't get this. My father was like so angry at the retailer that he was just like wrote them off. But one of the ladies I worked with was still working there. And I went in and she saw it. She said, let me play around with it. And she just engraved over it. She did it totally for free. And I mean, I got so blessed. I got so many blessings. Hair free, makeup free, engraving free. Just so much stuff that was really a blessing. Not that my wedding was free, but a lot of stuff God just blessed David and I with. So I'm going to take a closer look at these things and the wine glasses and share a little more. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, great. So one of the things that was on the knife and cake knife and the wine glasses were the names of Kenyon and his fiance at the time and the date of their wedding. So that didn't happen for me. I just have pretty hearts, but I do have David and my name on our cake and our date. Now, you see these flowers here? We had to buy them from Hobby Lobby. I got my 40% off coupon and give them to the caterer. What's the name? I keep forgetting the name. Not the caterer, the place where we had a cake done in Laurel. I can't think of it again today. So our colors were blue and lavender. But if Miss Marie Greer had done my cake, those would have been edible flowers. And so we had a very small cake because we only had 20 people. So I didn't have a double tier cake or anything like that. I didn't have the kind of cake Miss Marie could have made me. But that would have been, I would have had to gotten married 30 years ago in Michigan. But you see my cake topper there again. I featured that in one of our videos. But there you see it on the cake. So it was a very small cake, but it was very delicious. And I believe we got red velvet. Okay. Trying to get my PowerPoint to move forward. Okay. So, oops. Here David and I are cutting our cake. So you can see that we use what I just showed you, and I have my coworker, Miss Christina. She came in, she was helping out, and you can see David and I are very excited, and you get to see Ryan's work. Here, David and I are using the other cake knife to put the first piece of cake on a plate for he and I. My dad is eating the food. I think that's cornbread. You know, remember we talked about food, how we had to order individual food, and there's Tammy, my bridesmaid, or my maid of honor. So let's go on. So David and I have cut the cake, and someone else took over with making sure everybody had cake, and here we are feeding each other the cake. So that is definitely, a wedding tradition and a lot of fun and something I was looking forward to. And so here we are again, and my dad's here. He's here as well, and we're feeding each other the cake. So much fun, and you can see the knife and everything that I just featured, something old. And I just love this picture, and I love once again Ryan and his photography. And we're in our backyard. Okay, and just we were able to really enjoy that, or at least I did. That's something I seen. Now, one thing I seen is people taking the cake and mashing it in their new spouse's face. I really wasn't really willing to do that. We were in COVID. And I had my makeup. I wanted to keep my makeup looking good all night long. So that was just a lot of fun for David and I. So here is the groom's wedding wine glass. So once again, you can see where it was engraved. You can't even tell that it was something else. And my friend just was able, or former colleague, was able to cover right over that. And you see the bow tie here. And it just came out beautiful. So I had something old made new again. And so, I brought this out because yesterday I talked about communion. And so you can see that I thought we were going to use these glasses, the wine glasses, for communion, but they weren't used. Now, I don't know if you're able to see this. Let me see if I can. There is this little glass plate, and we actually put the bread for communion in that, and that's one of the things that did go right when it came to communion. That was something that someone gave me when I was just a little toddler. One of our former neighbors on Tuller. Tuller doesn't even exist anymore. I used to know the young boy's name. He's about 8 or 9. I'll have to ask my mom, but he gave that to me as a present as a babe. He loved me so much. I was so popular before I turned 8. I was just the only baby in the neighborhood. And I know the young man's name, but I can't remember it. And it's been years and years and years ago. And he gave me that. It's actually has this apparatus, and the little spoon is actually to get peanuts out. And so I just had it there. I wanted it to be something in my wedding, and it's still in the china cabinet at the Brown house. I have treasured that my whole life, have never really used it, but used it for my wedding. So I just wanted to bring that out. I don't know if you can really see it, but it was something that was very special to me. So later, as the night wore on, David and I finally had our first toast as a couple, and that was really special. And if you look, that makeup is still looking good. And here we are again, a close-up, and you can see how happy we are, and how our night ended. It didn't end just then, but we were running out of time with our photographer. So that is something that we really enjoyed. And if I can stop sharing, there we go. So I just wanted to share that sometimes, you know, things work out. There's no way that I would have known my brother wouldn't have gotten married to his second fiance. And I didn't realize that dad had gone to this establishment and tried, I'm gonna bring up my glass because mine is so pretty. Tried to get these items redone, and no. And then a few years later, I would work at this very same establishment for about 2 years, and then a few years later go back and have this done. So even though this wasn't something that was mine initially, and it was something I just found, isn't it wonderful how God works? I could be like, oh, my parents didn't do that, or I didn't get that. Yeah, I've been through that 100 times. But I feel so blessed that I just happened to find it, and it just didn't happen. I do believe the Holy Spirit led me to find these, and that it just all worked out. And it just all worked out just because it was happenstance. No, it was because I was blessed. I don't believe things just happen. I believe God gives us favor who love Him. I believe He blesses us even in the midst of adversity, even when we say and do things that aren't right, or if we have a negative attitude, or like me working through the grief of my wedding, or the wedding that didn't happen. It's easy, to say, this is what I wanted, this is what I worked for, and it just was a mess. And that can happen, and it's okay to admit that, and acknowledge that, and because that's valid. I don't want to shy away from what's valid, but it's also good to take that step back and say, you know what? The most important thing is the marriage, and it was beautiful, and there were so many blessings on so many sides. And that's what I take away from it. Yes, it grieves me that we didn't have the wedding that we planned. It grieves me that I never got to wear my wedding dress. It grieves me deeply that people I love weren't able to come. And that some people are not here with us anymore. That deeply grieves me. And I want to thank you for taking this journey with me, because I'm able to let go of a lot of that grief because I'm doing this, and I'm able to embrace all the things that God has done, all the things to say thank you to all the people who were such and are still such a blessing in my life and in David's life. So it's a pleasure. And so I'm just, so you can take something old and make it new, and know your steps are ordered by God. Don't just say, oh, that just happened. Always, as I've said in another episode, say thank you. And so that just worked out great for me. And I had something old, and I had things that really meant a lot to me. And it was really special because my brother couldn't be at my wedding. Yeah, that really hurt. But I had his stuff, so in a way, he was there. I just missed him not being there, and his wife and his boys. But I had all the stuff that was supposed to be his, and I had it for our wedding, which was great. And he was like totally cool with it. He was like, hey, you could use that? Cool. My brother is so cool. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, no matter what happens, you're always blessed. And if you're not, look again, because you really are. Thank you so much again for joining me for this episode of Happily Ever After. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Bye-bye.